What's wrong?
Oh,
Hey, you okay?
oh, some damn enchiladas.
Oh. You gonna be all right?
Oh, oh.
Unfortunately, this isn't the demon that we're talking about today. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Horror Movie Syllabus. My name is Professor Victor, and I'll be your host as we go through all of the essential, noteworthy, interesting, and downright notorious modern horror films. If you're new to the Horror Movie Syllabus, I recommend you check out the introduction video. I'll leave a link to that in the description below. It'll give you a pretty good idea of what we're all about here at the Horror Movie Syllabus, but in short, what we do is we take a particular subgenre of horror, and we take a look at 3 movies from that subgenre to give you a good idea of what that subgenre is all about. Today, the subgenre we're going to be talking about is demon movies. And it's a tricky subgenre to get into because we already talked about possession movies, and possession movies involve demon possessions. And demon movies are also going to involve possessions. So there's a lot of overlap between these two subgenres. I usually like to talk about the Venn diagrams being a circle, and in this case, that's true. You got your demon movies, you got your possession movies, and there are very much a lot of overlap between the two subgenres. But in this case, what I tried to focus on in this subgenre is movies where there was either a demon separate from possession, like the focus is on the demon and not actually on the possession, or that the possession really kind of changed people into monsters. I recognize it's kind of a nuanced and maybe arbitrary distinction between the two. And as I kind of already fessed up to in the possession subgenre, is there's a lot of these kind of movies that I really like. And so I really spread this out so that I could talk about more movies that I felt like needed to be on the syllabus. And so that's why they're kind of broken out into separate subgenres. But as we go along, I think you'll be able to see the distinction that I'm talking about. I think you'll understand the difference between a possession movie and a demon movie kind of just by seeing the movies that we've picked. At least that's my hope. If I fell short on this, I'm sure you'll let me know in the comments. But I think we'll be able to really understand what we're talking about in demon movies over here and possession movies over here. And we're not even going to talk about the fact that sometimes ghost movies also have demons, but we will be touching on that a little bit in just a few minutes when we talk about one of the movies. But yes, there's also some overlap between ghosts and demons. So as you can see, it gets a little bit messy, but when you look at it and you look at the movies that have been picked, I think it'll become a lot more clear. At least that's my hope. Fingers crossed. So stick with me on this one. So you got an idea now what we're talking about with ghost movies, or at least an inkling of an idea, and we'll kind of elaborate as we go along. As usual, we are going to separate these out into different levels: undergraduate, graduate, and postgraduate level. And in this case, that's going to indicate the increasing level of how much I like these movies. So with all of that said, let's jump right into these movies. Our first movie up for discussion today, our undergraduate movie, is Demons. It's logical, right? I mean, we're talking about demon movies. We're going to have demons as a pick. That seems logical. But it's not just because of the title, although you could make a case for that. It's really because this movie is a tremendous amount of fun. Released in 1985, Demons is directed by Lamberto Bava and is produced by Dario Argento. Argento, somebody who we have talked about and we will talk about in the future, legendary Italian director. But the movie is, for those of you who don't know, a story about a bunch of people that attend a screening of a movie at a newly reopened movie house, movie theater. And demons wind up crashing the show. And I don't like to say too much about the plot to avoid spoilers, and I have a feeling a lot of you might not have seen this movie before, so I think there's a chance that I could be spoiling a lot of you. While the movie might not be very well known, it is a lot of fun. Part of the reason why is because it has some really wonderful makeup effects, really wonderful practical effects. The movie's pretty gross. in a fun way. We talked in our splatter video a little bit about Brain Dead. It's been Dead Alive, if you will. This same movie, Brain Dead, Dead Alive. Same title, two different titles for the same movie. I use that movie as kind of the go-to for a really fun, gory movie. A movie that is less about realism and more about just gross out effects. Demons falls into that category. The demon effects, when the demons show up, are really gross in the best possible playful way. They're not stomach churning or anything like that. They're not realistic so much as they're just like, how did you do that? And like, ew. And that's a big part of the charm of the movie. That, and there are a lot of characters in the movie. Are a really better way to put it is there's a lot of caricatures in the movie that are very entertaining. Most of the characters are paper thin, surface level characters. They're not deep. They are caricatures. But sometimes they're played up really, really fun. The archetypes wind up shaking out kind of the way you would expect. And that works really well for the tone of the movie. The movie's not trying to really be campy, but still slides into that campy area every once in a while in a good way. This is not a criticism of the movie. The movie is fun. I went into this having heard about it. It has some notoriety. It's not really a super well-known movie or something that is oftentimes at the top of people's lips when they talk about demon movies. But for some of the deeper horror fans, you probably have heard of this movie. You might have even seen the movie. And I think that when I went to go see it, I was expecting it to be, I don't know, maybe a little bit pretentious or something like that. And it's not. It's just fun. It's got a similar tone to some of the other movies we'll talk about in this video in a good way. I really had a blast watching this movie. I was surprised at how much I enjoyed it, and I shouldn't have been. It's Argento. The movie, as a result, he's not the director. Lamberto Bava is the director, but the Bavas and the Argentos, they're tight. And you can see his influence on the movie. The way the colors are used in the movie, it's very stylish. The way it's shot is very, very stylish. Stylish is a word I would use a lot, second to gory in this movie. It's just a really cool look to the movie. There's a weird subplot with some punk kids or punk young people that doesn't seem like it's going anywhere, but then it kind of dovetails into the story. But it's all just kind of fun. The movie's not taking itself tremendously seriously, but it is playing it straight, and I think that's why it works. I think that's why it never feels like a joke of a movie, even though you might be kind of laughing with it a little bit. I just really, really enjoy this movie. It was a big hit in Italy, but not really such a big hit critically. But it was popular, and I think that's part of why it's managed to get its cult following and kind of persevere as a known horror film. And after all these years, it has remained something of a cult classic. And I think it's because it's an enjoyable movie. It's an enjoyable watch. They did make 2 sequels to the movie, but it's worth noting that the third movie, Demons 3, is actually just like a direct TV movie that was named something else, and it was just retitled Demons 3 to capitalize on the name, so it's probably not really a true sequel. I haven't seen either of them yet, but I intend to because I enjoyed the first one so much. It just, as I've noted in other videos, the two watch list is getting a little bit long. But Demons is a lot of fun. If you haven't seen it, check it out. I think it's a good time. It's not taking itself too seriously. It's a pretty short watch. The characters are fun. The demon effects are really cool and really enjoyable. It's just a fun movie. And it's not too deep or not too heavy. So it's a good 90 minutes of your time. Time well spent. If you have seen it, let us know in the comments what you think. And if you haven't seen it, give it a chance. Check it out. Let us know what you think. The next demon movie we're talking about, our graduate level movie, is Sinister. Now, Sinister came out in 2012, and this is one that's maybe a little bit of a controversial choice, only in that it's debatable how much of this is a demon movie, and I'll explain why. You could make a case that this is a ghost movie because there is a ghost aspect to it. You could even make a case that this could have been put into the found footage subgenre because of some of the found footage aspects of the movie. But We're calling it a demon movie because it centers around what I'll call a demon named Bagul. And I can't really decide if I think that is a cool name or a dumb name. It might be both, but it's Bagul. Buguul, I think. I don't know. Bagul is a goofy name, but I kind of love it. And the movie is about a true crime writer who takes his family, moves into a new house where a murder was committed. And he finds these old films in the attic of various murders being committed. And it kind of leads him down this path of mystery that ties into this demon named Bagul. And I'll stop there in terms of plot summary because, again, I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't seen it. But one of the things that I guess I'll kind of spoil is that Bagul is identified in the movie as an ancient pagan deity, which would mean that technically he's not a demon. However, most pagan deities, from a Christian perspective, would be categorized or discussed as demons. So I'm going to say it counts. Look, for the average person, you're going to see Bagul, you're going to think demon. Like, that's just what you're going to think. It's basically what he's portrayed as. So I don't think you're going to get a lot of people pushing back calling this a demon movie because he's really a pagan deity. Because, frankly, there's no pagan deity subgenre in the horror movie syllabus. And I don't think there would be in anybody's. I defy you to pick 3 pagan deity. Well, actually, I stopped there right there because you might be able to do it. But I don't think anybody's going to really have any problems calling this a demon movie because of the categorization of Bagul. But they might think of it more as a ghost movie, especially when it comes from the same people, making the Conjuring movies and stuff like that. So there's again some overlap in those Venn diagrams that I talked about earlier, and that might be some of the controversy of the selection here as a demon movie. But I do think that people would agree that Sinister is a really good movie. I think a big part of that has to do with Ethan Hawke in the lead. Ethan Hawke, very, very good actor, Academy Award nominated actor, and he's really, really good here as the true crime writer who's trying to uncover this mystery and who's kind of getting obsessed with it. It's his presence in the movie that grounds the film and gives it a certain gravitas and makes it feel urgent or intense. It gives us a sense of like imminence or like impending doom that I think is carried through mostly by the way he's acting. A large chunk of the movie is like just him like doing research or him watching movies, and it still ends up managing to be captivating. Now the movies that he finds like are shot on this like Super 8 film or 16 millimeter, and those are the highlights of the movie. The found footage scenes in the movie, which are only a short part of the movie, are really, really creepy. That's why I could see somebody maybe putting this movie in their found footage thing, because it's really some of the most effective parts of the movie. They work extremely well. It's one of the best selling points of the movie, and it's one of the things that makes it so memorable. That was a good idea. That was a good way to kind of hook people in and show some really gruesome stuff in a way that was found footage effective, but also being a mainstream, traditionally shot horror film. Good blending of genres, good blending of subgenres in that sense. Very effective, very, very clever. And it's not the only movie that's done that before, but it's one of the better ones that's done it, in my opinion. The other thing about this movie that I really like is that it does set up this mystery that Ethan Hawke's character is trying to uncover about Bagul and kind of this pattern of murders that's happened. That's intriguing. Like if you like mysteries, which I do, then that's part of the movie that might also work out really well for you, because it's a pretty good mystery. It's not amazing, but I found it to be engaging and kind of hooked me in. And I didn't necessarily see the revelations from the mystery coming. So to me, that's a pretty solid mystery. And I like that it wasn't just a bunch of boo scares and stuff like that, because the movie is a more modern movie. So it has a more modern sensibility in terms of jump scares and loud noises and modern, what I call modern editing. It's quicker paced than a lot of the other movies we talk about from the 70s and 80s in this channel. And so if you're a newer, younger horror viewer, you probably will appreciate that. It'll resonate for you more. But if you're not, if you're into like that older vibe, that older style of editing, don't let that turn you off. This movie is really, really good, and I think part of it is because there's still a slow burn mystery at the core of it that works out rather well. So it's a good blending of like quick cut editing and jump scares and mystery and unsettling concepts. It's a really good marriage of the two, and I like this movie quite a bit, and that's a big part of it. Is that I think that it's really blended together older sensibilities, newer sensibilities into something that feels fairly fresh and fairly original. Now, I noted that Ethan Hawke is a big part of the success of this movie, and he's not in the sequel, which is why I think the sequel is a lesser movie. It's not a bad movie. If you like the first one a lot, you probably will enjoy the second one enough to make it worth your time. But without Ethan Hawke, it loses something. It is tied into the first one, and that's part of why I do like it. But it's not essential viewing by any stretch of the imagination, and uh, some of it just feels derivative. Feels like we're kind of going through some of the same motions or same steps. So the mystery isn't really as compelling at that point. So diminishing returns, as I like to say, on the sequel. Not a bad time, but the original is really, really good. If you haven't seen it, give it a chance. If you're for some reason you're thinking, oh, it's one of those Blumhouse type movies or whatever, I'm not into that. Give it a chance, because with the combination of Ethan Hawke and the found footage angle and the mystery, it really comes together nicely into something that I think is a very solid, very entertaining, very noteworthy horror film. One that was worthy of getting a spot on the syllabus. If you haven't seen it, check it out. And if you have seen it, let us know what you think in the comments below. And last but not least, our postgraduate demon movie is The Evil Dead. The Evil Dead is a bona fide classic. You maybe heard me use that phrase before, and I'm using it again here. It's a modern horror classic. It's incredibly well known. It's a franchise of movies, and Evil Dead is the first one. It came out in 1981, and it is an absolutely fantastic movie. In part because it's not a fantastic movie. Let me explain. For those of you who aren't familiar with what it is, The Evil Dead is about a group of friends that go to a cabin in the wood, come across a mysterious book called the Necronomicon, read from it, and unleash demons. And hijinks abound. The movie is directed by Sam Raimi, who you might be familiar with now as the director of Spider-Man movies and other things that he's done. Evil Dead's kind of where he's getting his start. And that's a big piece of what makes The Evil Dead a classic. Is Sam Raimi is an innovative and visionary director. And Evil Dead is some of the best examples of his skills, because he has very little money when he's making this movie, but he has a vision and he has talent. And as a result, the movie winds up being incredibly watchable. He uses a combination of very, very interesting camera movements and camera techniques, along with really great practical effects, including a lot of like stop motion type effects, which I'll be honest with you, they don't look real, but they're incredibly charming. And he puts all this together along with a really, really charismatic cast, especially Bruce Campbell, who more on him in a minute, all come together to make an incredibly watchable, enjoyable, fun, scary movie that works. The movie is low budget. The movie is not going to hold up to the slick production values of, say, a Sinister or a modern movie that comes out nowadays. And that's part of the charm of it. You won't care that the movie has low budget effects. It won't matter, because you'll be so wrapped up in the fun of the movie. Now, a lot of people love the Evil Dead franchise, and a lot of their love stems from the Evil Dead 2, which is interesting because the Evil Dead 2 operates somewhat as like a remake of Evil Dead with some slightly better budget and effects, but it also kind of leans in heavier into the comedy aspect of the movies. Specifically, Evil Dead 2 has the same basic setup as Evil Dead, but then goes off into a much more, I'll use the word campy, but I mean that in the best possible way, comedic tone that just kind of changes the franchise forever and makes it more horror comedy than just a straight horror. And that's great. Don't get me wrong. I love Evil Dead 2. I love the franchise. But for me, the original Evil Dead, which is playing it a little bit more straight, works better for me. I find the movie incredibly charming, incredibly creative, incredibly fun. Just a really good time. It's a favorite of mine. It's a favorite of many people's. Like I said, a lot of people maybe put Evil Dead 2 over Evil Dead. Totally fine. I wouldn't argue with them about that at all. Evil Dead 2 is it's in its own right an excellent movie that can stand on its own. You could actually watch Evil Dead 2 without watching Evil Dead, and many people have. I have a particular affinity for the original because of the fact that it was just playing it straight, because it really does have that almost do it yourself aspect to it that I talked about before a little bit. I have an affinity for do it yourself homemade movie type things. Maybe to a shameful degree. There's some really bad ones out there that I kind of have some love for. Evil Dead's not a bad one. Evil Dead is maybe one of the best examples of that. So if you want to see the origin of an incredible filmmaker, Sam Raimi, this is a great place to start. Also, like I mentioned, it's got the start of Bruce Campbell. Bruce Campbell, known as kind of a larger than life personality, in large part because of his character Ash from the Evil Dead series. He is just such a huge personality, such a larger than life force of nature, and you see the origins of that, the seedlings of that in this movie. He doesn't really full-fledged become the Ash that we all know and love until Evil Dead 2. But you see the beginnings of it here. You can see the star power of him. And when I say star power, I don't mean George Clooney leading man star power. I just mean like the kind of guy that you're just rooting for, who just owns the screen whenever he's on it and just kind of steals the show, choose dialogue, choose scenery. Bruce Campbell is absolutely amazing. I remember actually bumping into him at a horror convention when I turned the corner and he was there walking and just being mobbed by people. And I was maybe 5 feet away from him. I got a picture of him. I couldn't even get close to him because the throng of people around him were so intense. He was like, he signed a woman's arm, he's beloved by the horror community, and for good reason. He has a certain charm to him that is unparalleled. I don't know if there's another actor out there who has the charisma and the lovability that Bruce Campbell has. And he's a huge reason why the franchise has been successful, from Evil Dead to Evil Dead 2 to the third movie, Army of Darkness, which leans in very heavily to kind of the absurd comedy aspect of it. It's lesser movie to me. It's not as, I don't love it as much as the first two, but a lot of people really love it. And again, not hating them on that. And then of course there's also the Ash versus Evil Dead TV series, which I highly recommend. It really has that balance of horror and comedy, really gory, really silly. Bruce Campbell front and center carrying the show with some sidekicks that are actually quite enjoyable. So don't usually talk about TV much on the horror movie syllabus, but Ash versus Evil Dead. If you like the Evil Dead movies, you got to check that one out for sure. But I'd be remiss in not mentioning the Evil Dead remake by Fede Alvarez that came out about 10 years ago now. Because the remake was exceptional. The remake did what I would have wanted to do if I was tasked with remaking Evil Dead, which is to go back to the original movie rather than Evil Dead 2 and focus on straight horror rather than trying to do horror comedy. Because honestly, A, horror comedy is not easy to do, and B, without Bruce Campbell, you're just going to be a pale imitation. So they went a different direction and tried to redo the original, but with better effects, but they kept practical effects. They didn't go CGI, and that's a huge reason why the movie's really good. Another reason is Jane Levy playing the lead role. She is a great actress. I really like her. She's somebody that we will be talking about. Can't remember if we talked about her yet, but we will definitely be talking about her. And she's really good in this movie. The movie is super gross, super intense, pretty scary. One of the better horror remakes you're going to ever see. Really kind of surprised people. Everybody didn't want to see the Evil Dead remade, but when they saw it, they got in line. It was a really popular, well-received remake, and for good reason. I also like that it's a remake, but you can argue that it actually takes place in the same universe, and it's not actually a remake, but a sequel or sidequel, or just takes place in the same Evil Dead universe and doesn't actually undo or replace what's come before. That I like quite a bit. It can stand on its own as its own thing, or it can kind of dovetail into the Evil Dead lore, mythology, the world, shared universe, if you will. So I definitely recommend Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 and the remake. And honestly, at that point, you should see all of it. You should see Army of Darkness, and you should see Ash vs. Evil Dead as well. The franchise is beloved by horror fans with good reason. It's a lot of fun. You're you're in for a lot of gore, but it's not the kind of gore that's going to unsettle you and leave you traumatized. It's the kind of gore that's going to make you laugh because it's so over the top, like blood spraying everywhere and stuff like that. It's a good time. If you don't know Bruce Campbell, get to know Bruce Campbell. If you don't know Evil Dead, get to know Evil Dead. If you're not familiar with Sam Raimi, here's a great place to start. Can't recommend the movies enough. I have a deep affection for them. Everybody else that seems to also. I don't know anybody who's seen these movies and dislikes them. I've never come across somebody who says Evil Dead sucks. I've never seen it ever. So can so many people be wrong? I suppose that's possible, but you know, lean into it, man. If you haven't seen it, now is the time to catch up and get into it because you've been missing out. And of course, if you've got praise to give to Evil Dead, leave it in the comments below because it's a movie that, or a movie series that people don't seem to get tired of talking about, including me. So let's continue the conversation in the comments below, guys. So that's going to do it for our exploration into demon movies. But as usual, I like to leave you with a few extra credit movies if you want to get a little bit more demon fix. The first movie that we're going to talk about is Mirrors. And Mirrors is a movie starring Kiefer Sutherland and Amy Smart, and I like those actors a lot. And the movie it's good. It's an enjoyable movie. It's got some pretty cool scenes in it that are pretty memorable. A little heavy on the CGI. It's more of a modern film as a result. And I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't go so far as to call it a guilty pleasure because I don't think it's a bad movie by any stretch of the imagination. But it's not an amazing movie. It's not a classic or anything like that. It's just it's a good time. It's got some good scares in it. It's got some good effects in it. Even though again the CGI, especially by today's standards, maybe isn't as great as it could be, but it's a pretty cool concept and it's a pretty cool, like it's a pretty good memorable scene. So if you're in for a good time, some good scares, you could do a lot worse than Mirrors. I know that there is a sequel that I haven't seen yet, and I've heard nothing about it. Like, it seems like it had made zero impact at all. So I can't really speak to the sequel, but the original, I find it to be a good time. Again, I don't think anybody has strong opinions of this one way or the other, but I do think it's a fun time. I think it's worth mentioning as an extra credit film here for demons, and so I'm throwing it out there as something for you to maybe check out and see if you like. If you have an opinion on Mirrors, leave it in the comments below because I'd like to hear what you think about it. But yeah, I'm throwing it out here as just kind of like a good time movie. I'm not really emphatic about it, but I do enjoy it. The next movie I'm going to mention here is a movie called Demonic. And again, it's another movie that I may be kind of being a little on the nose with in terms of the title of the movie. But what I like about this movie, and this movie is gets some mixed reviews. Some people really like it, some people really don't like it, and I can see why. But what I like about it is twofold. First of all, it stars Maria Bello, who I think is absolutely fantastic. Maria Bello, another grossly underrated actress that doesn't get enough credit for her skill and her talent. And it also has Frank Grillo. Some of you who might be fans of Frank Grillo from the Purge movies or from the Marvel movies, and he's good here too. And it's a story about a cop and a psychiatrist investigating some weird events that happen and some murders that happen at a house. So the thing about Demonic that I find interesting is that it really is a bunch of different subgenres at once. It's a demon movie, it's a haunted house movie, and it's a found footage movie, and it's a thriller. And a lot of people find that to be kind of a mess, and it's a fair argument to make. The movie can be a little bit messy. I like it though. I particularly like the found footage folding into it because the movie takes place in kind of two timelines at the same time. It's like part flashbacks, part current time, and that worked for me. I like those kind of non-sequential, wonky time storylines. I've talked about it before. So that kind of endeared me to the movie a little bit. So I already had Maria Bello, and it had a wonky timeline, and the rest of the characters, they're fine. They're fine. The scares were decent. I really liked some of the found footage aspect kind of being folded into it without it being a found footage movie. There's a twist that is a cheating twist, and I've talked about cheating twists before. Every once in a while, I'll give one a pass. I can't really give it a pass here, and I think that might be part of the reason why people who don't like this movie don't like it. Is this movie cheats a little bit in terms of trying to surprise you. It didn't ruin the movie for me, but it is problematic. Again, I don't want to oversell the movie. I don't think it's amazing. It's definitely not a must see, but I found it to be enjoyable. A pretty good use of my 90 minutes. A decent enough mystery, and a film style that some people may find to be all over the place, but I found it to be entertaining and made the movie a little bit more interesting. So let me know what you think of Demonic if you've checked it out before. And the last movie we're going to talk about is Night of the Demons. And Night of the Demons is a bit of a cult favorite. Not only is it, again, demon in the title, so maybe on the nose once more, but this one is a cult favorite. There is a lot of love and affection for this movie that came out in the 80s, to the fact where I think Scream Factory even put out a special edition with Night of the Demon action figures. So you can see that there is a following for it, a cult following for this movie. Now, I don't share that affection. I've seen the movie. It's fine, but it doesn't live up to that cult status for me. In my opinion, it takes a long time for it to get going. The movie is, I think, about 90 minutes long. It takes like 30, 40 minutes before anything really starts to happen. And I don't find the characters very likable. I think I might be in the minority with that. I think a lot of people really like some of the characters or caricatures. They might find them kind of fun. I didn't. I don't really enjoy them. And so that first 30, 40 minutes feels like a bit of a slog to me. Once it gets going and the demons show up, it gets better. And the second half of the movie is better than the first. There are some creepy demon scenes. Linnea Quigley is in the movie. She's a horror scream queen. We'll talk about her in the future. But she's great in the movie, and she plays one of the demons. That's a bit of a spoiler, I suppose, but not much of one. But she's really creepy in the movie. And then there's another woman who I don't remember the name of right now off the top of my head, but I should. And she also really good as a demon too. The demon aspect of the movie works pretty well. And once you get to that point, I think the movie picks up quite a bit. And I can see where the affection comes from. To me, it's just a little too late. And I say that mostly to manage expectations. If you're going in to see this for the first time and you've heard about it, you might be expecting this to be a lot more fun than it actually winds up being, especially early on. Not to say it's not worth a watch, not to say you're wasting your time, because like I said, at the end of the day, I had a decent enough time. It just took me longer to get there than I would have liked. I would have liked to have seen things to kind of pop off a little bit earlier, like maybe at the 20-minute mark or something like that, because the character development that's in the movie is it's not worth it. My buddy likes to say the juice ain't worth that squeeze. So I would have liked to have seen them jump into the demon aspect better, because the effects of the demon, the makeup and stuff, are pretty cool. Some good creepy scenes there, and the second half of the movie does pick up quite a bit. But does it deserve the reverence of the cult following that it has? In my opinion, no, not really. But if you are one of those cult followers, if you do have the affection for this movie, please explain in the comments down below what your affection for the movie comes from. And I'd like to hear a little bit more of a defense of the movie, because I wanted to put it on here as extra credit, because I do think it's noteworthy enough. It has enough of a reputation that it should be mentioned here. But I just also wanted to give the caveat that I feel like it's a little slow in the first half. So if you've seen it, let us know what you think of it, and whether or not you think that it really should be like a must-see of a demon horror movie. So with that, we're going to go ahead and call it a day on the demons. If you're thinking of other demon movies that we didn't talk about, by all means, suggest them in the comments down below. We've been getting some really great suggestions for movies on these videos, so I'm eager to see what you come up with the caveat that, once again, some of these demon movies might be showing up, might have shown up already in the possession movie subgenre, or in the ghost movie subgenre. Or even some others that are coming up in the future. So bear in mind, some of your selections might actually still wind up being on the syllabus, but that shouldn't stop you from suggesting them, because we all benefit when you guys put in suggestions. People get to see those suggestions and maybe add them to their to watch list. I know I do when you guys suggest something that I haven't seen. I usually add it to the list, which is getting long. But I really appreciate you guys contributing, because your comments have been absolutely fantastic to read. I've been having a lot of fun engaging with you guys on there, so keep it up. And if you haven't been in the comments, now's the time to get in and join the party. So with that, we're calling it a video. We're calling it a day. Thank you guys very much for attending, and until next time, class dismissed.